we go, let's get those wheels out on the road. It may get dusty, but that's the way she goes. We'll build some greasy old cars and drink our AGD. Hey, don't you know, it's partly built.
Okay, so I didn't film anything last weekend because Josh was extremely hungover from a bachelor party, and I just got back from camp and I left camping early so I could come here and get a day's work in. So didn't film anything, but basically we did some sheet metal work. As you can see, this is one of the two hoods that I cut apart, and my CAD designs here. So I started by making plates to fill in here. I filled a couple pieces in underneath. I cut the top here out of a mid-90s Chevy hood. This was out of that Ford Edge hood. So that is tacked in to seal that up. This will be bolted to the top. And then it has the access hatch here for us to fill oil, check oil, stuff like that. Josh started welding the inner fender back in here, and it's actually out of an old fender off that Kenworth there. So once again, we're adding yet another vehicle in here. But the plan today, first things first, I gotta clean up so I can function in here. I hate walking around this mess, and this toolbox needs a little tidying because it's a disaster. But we got brake fluid, injectors, AC delete, and a belt. So I should be able to hopefully get this thing so it starts reliably. And then my next plan is, well, like I said, I got brake fluid, so I'll get the brakes bled. I think I'm going to mount that switch pack I have over there, and we'll get the start button in it. I want to put a fan override in. So the start button, a fan override, the fuel pump circuit, and maybe the cruise control wired into it. And then the line lock I'm going to put on the shifter for now, because the line lock did come with a fancy switch here somewhere in my bloody disaster. Right here. Oh, no, that's the line lock light. Here's the switch. So if I can mount that to a shifter, then we can use the line lock correctly. But yeah, so first things first, I'm going to clean up, and then we'll reconvene with whatever we're doing. Oh, and by the way, Josh is gone reuniting with his family. I don't know why someone would want to reunite with him, but I got the keys to the shop. So this is my nut house now. So whatever happens in here now, I'm not responsible for. But yeah. All right, let's get to cleaning. Okay, so I filled the brakes. Instantly had a massive leak. Turns out if you don't put the clamp all the way on to the steel pipe when you go on the hose, and it's only on the hose, it doesn't seal very well. So now that we got that done, I'll start cracking bleeder lines, or bleeder screws, and we'll see if we can't get these brakes to gravity bleed while we're working on wiring and stuff. Good, I pulled the air intake off of the throttle body, pulled the injector rail out, and vacuumed all the junk out of there. And it was right full of like grease, dirt, body dust. And I tell you what, I'm really going to miss when we have a back window in this thing. I'm going to miss the ability to work through the back, because I just pulled the injector rail out and I'll do the injectors right here where it's easy. So I'll get these injectors swapped out with the new ones. We'll stuff it all back in and we'll see if it wants to run. It turns out these injectors are kind of a bear to get in and out. So I pulled the rail right out of the car. The O-ring was super tight going in this one. These ones come out nicer, but I was able to use pliers on them. And then I dumped all the fuel out of the rail, because even though we've ran it with fresh fuel, the fuel still smells a little wangy in the rail. So at least if I flush that out, I don't have to worry as much. So I'll get the new injectors put in, and then I'll get it put back in the car now. Okay, so I've got the pump running for a little bit here. Let's see if we get anything. Key on. So let me crack a line here. I can smell raw fuel though, so it's like it's getting fuel, but it's not burning it. I don't know. There's definitely fuel there. Yeah, I can feel fuel coming through the return. I can hear fuel flowing. It's almost like it's messing with its coolant temperature or something. I'm not sure. Oh, I think it's getting way too much fuel, being as it's pouring out the back. So what the heck? Do I have a brand new injector that's stuck? So once again, it's got fuel dripping out of it. I have a brand new injector that's either stuck on or the computer's giving it on all the time, which doesn't sound realistic. So I'll pull the rail back off, turn the fuel pump on, and see if I have an injector sticking, and then I'll have to get another injector. Alright, so I pulled it out, I left the injectors all plugged in. Now I'm going to run the pump and see, do we have an injector squirting, or is it only when the key is on? And it might be injector number 4. Injector number 4 is stuck on. So if I unplug it, is it a wiring issue? Or is it an injector issue? This was so much easier before someone put this plate in front of the engine. It's tough with fat hands too. There we go. So now it's unplugged. So let's power up the fuel pump. Still going. So we have a bad injector. So that being said, I'm going to grab one of the old injectors, put it back in, and test it again. Okay, shall we try this again? That's better. I like that better. Now we'll put it all back together again. Alright, after pulling the rail in and out 16 times because of injector plugs not being nice and that bad injector, let's try this again. I don't know. I'll lift it up and throw the AC delete kit in it, and maybe we'll try again after that. I've got the battery charger on it right now. It's not much of a charger, but it's enough to keep the battery up. Whew, look at the oil coming from that power steering. I'm waiting on Steven to make me a power steering pump block off here. So she kind of leaks a little oil everywhere, and man is that oil ugly and black. I definitely got to do that oil change soon too. But let's lift it up. I got all the front brakes bled, as you can see by the mess. I had one leak up front again I had to fix, a different spot. So now we're just waiting for the back brakes to gravity bleed. So we'll lift it up, and I might as well, before I lift it, I wonder if I should just run wires down for that line lock too, and then lift it and do that AC delete. Maybe that's what we'll do, but I'll get back to it. So I got the bracket for the AC delete installed with one minor problem. That's a giant pulley. That is not a lot of space. We didn't actually plan for this originally because we thought we'd just bypass it. So I either need to put a smaller pulley, if I can find one, on this bracket and a shorter belt, or I need to change my idler to a ribbed idler and come around the outside with it, which might be what I end up doing. I'm just going to go outside and check the engine on that old Ford truck to see what it has for idlers on it, because maybe, just maybe, I can use one off it to fix this problem. Well, I checked that 5-liter and there was nothing on it usable, but I have one more idea I'm going to try. So I actually happen to have a tensioner off of like a 8.3 liter Cummins or the whatever ISL out of a garbage truck, and it fits on there nice. I'm going to have to just grind away a little bit of this tube, but problem solved. I just have to have enough room for the belt to run by without rubbing. Alright, so after some light sanding and a quick trip to town that may or may not have exceeded the speed limit for most of it, I got a shorter belt and I got my idler pulley in there. And as you can see, you can just, well, I don't know if you'll see it on the camera, but you can just see daylight through most of that. So the rest of it will self-clearance. But we have a belt, so now we'll have an alternator. And I got some seafoam to run through it, both in the engine oil and in the fuel. I left the battery charging while I was gone. I left the brake bleeders open, but I'm still not getting any fluid to the back. So I'm just going to give the brakes a little press once I set the car back down. And we'll see if we get any fluid to the back, see how the pedal feels. I realize it's going to feel spongy because the back brakes are still nothing, but I don't see any fresh leaks up front. So I think my front brake system at rest is fine. The line lock wires are wired up to the line lock itself and then tucked into the cab. So I can finish wiring that. I'm starting to stress a lot because as I was driving back, I was doing the math. Today is June 15th. I have 4 weeks to make this run, drive, get it aligned, finish all the body work, well enough that we can trust it, put lights on it, wire the lights in, put seats in it, clean up the wiring in the cab, and test drive it, and test it on a track before Miles of Mayhem. So I think starting this week, I'm going to have to start coming out here 2-3 nights a week and just getting stuff done, whether Josh is here or not, because he's a busy guy. Like, he's got work, he's got a family. I might just come out here after work and do little things. Every night, come out for 2 hours or so and just get stuff done. But in the meantime, I'm going to set it back down, see about getting these back brakes bled, try again to start it. I don't know what its problem is, but that's another thing that's stressing me. Like, I can't understand what's wrong, what it's not seeing, because I hook up the computer and I'm not seeing any signals that it's missing, anything bad. I don't know what's going on. I'm going to have to talk to people way smarter than me and see if they can figure it out, because I have no idea. But I'm going to get back to work on this. Alright, so now I've made a better temporary repair to my fuel system. So now it's just master on, fuel system on. Let's try this crap again. You know, the definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Let's try something a little more aggressive. Okay, so as you just saw, if I add fuel, it runs. So clearly, something is keeping the injectors from injecting fuel, or my fuel pressure is too low. I'm not sure right now. There's no T in the, or no test port in that fuel line, like on the rail. So I'm gonna have to put a T in line with a gauge and see if I can read anything there. I did notice I have something dripping on the floor here, which looks a lot like brake fluid. So I'm pretty sure I got fittings loose on a T. So I'm going to tighten them up and then see if we can get the back brakes to bleed. If I can make any suggestions to anyone, when you're test fitting stuff, just tighten it all the way. Because you never know if it's the last time you're test fitting it. Every single brake line to the back of the car was loose. All my connections, except for right down at the bottom. All the upper connections were loose. So I've got fluid to all 4 wheels. They do kind of work. The pedal's really soft, so I think I'll have to vacuum bleed them still. but we have brakes. The other thing is we got little leaks in the cooling system because of holes in the welds, or the welds aren't quite tight. So we got to clean up that a little bit. Here is the worst, just where he swedged a smaller pipe in. And then there's a tiny, tiny leaks at some of the other welds. And I would never recommend this to anyone, but I'm going to put stop leak in because I don't care and we're only running water in it right now. So as long as it doesn't leak on the track and we can keep water in it, I'm fine with that kind of hackery for now. There's always next year to get it better. But when we're in a time crunch, we kind of got to play by our own rules. So I'm going to get going on some wiring and maybe mount that wiring or that little control panel I have so that I can wire the pump properly through a switch and just say F it. So which means I'll take that wire that's ran from the pump to the back and I'll run it from the pump up to the front so that I can just run it through a relay at the front and to my switch panel. And then the other thing is I got to pull a bunch of relays out of this box for functions we're not using, or fuses from this relay box I have at the back that can run extra functions. So yeah, back to work. I've already wasted like 6 hours today messing around with injectors and all that BS. I have another injector coming. I should have that Tuesday, so that if I come out Wednesday or Tuesday night, I can do that injector, and hopefully I have a solution as to why the injectors aren't firing. Well, either the injectors aren't firing or the pump's not making enough pressure, but we know the pump was making some pressure because that injector was leaking all the way out the exhaust. So I'm thinking it's something to do with the injectors not firing, so I just have to look through wiring and see if I can find a fuse for that. But in the meantime, back to wiring. I know I said I was going to get started on wiring, but I had to figure out where I was going to mount the switch pack and run the line lock wires. And to do that, I had to modify the old bezel for the shifter, and as you can see, it still has the bullet hole in it. So I modified that to fit so that I could figure out where I was running the wires for the line lock, where I was going to mount the tack. Then I had these old brackets that were actually the mounting brackets for the shifter in the truck to sit it up higher, and got them welded in there and drilled so that my switch pack is mounted now. And don't worry, the welds are horrendous, so you know exactly who welded it. It was me and not Josh. My override for my fan, my fuel pump, which is labeled bilge pump. And then I have 3 extras that I can wire however I want, because Lord knows I'm going to have 300 extra things to do. I should mount that start switch somewhere better. Maybe on here somewhere, we'll see. We're getting there. It's just a lot of thinking, and I don't know if you've watched these videos, but I don't have the mental capacity to be doing a ton of thinking, so I'm just going to keep tinkering. Still thinking about why that won't fire the injectors. I gotta look, maybe it's anti-theft, maybe I reflashed the computer and actually turned the anti-theft back on. I don't remember, it's been weeks. So, I'm gonna get back to work. The control panel is crudely wired in. When I say crudely, I mean like, I wired it, so it's Neanderthal crude, as you can see in here. But, I got the relay installed for the fuel pump. I just got to run the wire down to the pump, so I'll just bring it from the back up to here, through the relay. I put an override in for the fan, and the line lock should be wired up as well. So, in theory, if I hit this switch, everything's full-time power, so it should light up in here, which it does. 14.9 volts, nice. So I've got, alright. Huh. My fan override is on the wrong one. I'll have to switch the wires on the back, but the override works. So next is line lock. I don't know when the fan spools down there how well you can hear it, but the line lock clicks. So I'm going to call that a success. And I changed out the fuse for the line lock. All those are wired with a 15 amp fuse, but the line lock came with a 5 amp. So I swapped out the 15 amp and the 5 amp fuse. Okay, so I'll lift it back up. I cut the wire for the fuel pump already up at the top. I'll run it back down. and I'll run it forward and up, and I'll get the fuel pump wired up to the switch. I tell you, the levels of my hackery know no bounds. So the fuel pump wires, I ran it to the front, up through where the line lock comes through, behind the switches, through the hole in the dash, because there's nowhere else up through the body without going in the wheel wells, and I just didn't want to do that. So the wire comes through here, and it's wired into my relay. So now, if I turn the power on and hit the fan switch, because I haven't switched the wires yet. So turn the power on. Right. 12.7 volts. Okay, we have no fuel pump. Alright, well, what did I do wrong this time? Did I mix up 85 and 86 and this relay has a diode? Sure does. I'm betting that's what I did. Let me mess with this. Alright, so I did mix up a couple wires on my relay, but I got it now. So I had it in a nice mount. It's not there anymore. That'll get redone in the future, but not before Miles Mayhem. So now, problem solved. Now I'll just switch those two wires on the back here, and that part's done. As I was working in there, I realized, hey, it's kind of bright in here. Oh look, I must have an open door. It actually works. Alright, I just spent some time looking through the wiring diagram at the injector wiring, and found that they all share ground, they don't all share power, and then power is switched through the ECM, which is power side, not ground side, which is weird for an ECM, but I think that's because it's older. So I come down to my relay box. They share, well, first thing I did is they share ground with a bunch of stuff, like fuel relay, fuel pump, what does it say? They share with the fuel pump relay and the fuel pump module. So this could also be why I didn't have fuel pump running off the relay at the back, but whatever. So I added a new splice, and it didn't help, like to the ground, like a new ground to that stud from the main ground stud. It didn't help. So then I pulled this fuse box off, pulled the back off it, figured out which was the ground wire, added an extra round, and then tested there again at the injector, and I had ground. So now I'm ready to try this again. So here's hoping this will actually work now. If it does, then I can put all that wiring back together back there. I'll just put a better ground onto the wire back there. So we'll see what happens. Fuel pump. Still nothing. I'm wondering if I'm just too low a voltage. I guess I'm gonna have to try maybe use a better battery, see if that makes the difference, but if it still had a bunch of brake clean in the intake, so I think that's why it fired up quick there. So I still don't know what's going on with this dang thing. Alright, I looked at my schematic again and I realized, Mike, you're an idiot. Yes, that is a splice, but that's not a ground splice. Followed it back to the fuel pump and went, oh, that's power. So, just to do a little testing, I came to these are hot powers out of these spare fuses and relays in here that I'm not using anymore. And I pulled the gray wire out of the fuel pump relay, which should have been the power. Gave it power. And now, if I reach in and turn on the fuel pump, so as you can see, I don't have power to that for some reason. I don't know where that gets power from, because it doesn't really say in here anywhere that it gets power from. So I'm not sure. But, oh, it all takes power from the fuel pump relay. So the fuel pump relay gave everything power. So because the fuel pump relay wasn't switching, it wouldn't start. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to connect these two wires right here. And then it'll work. the other thing is I want to make sure the alternator is working. So let me clean up my mess back here and we'll start it again. All right, so now that we got that working, just ignore the pipe. I got things I'm working on there. Let's make sure that the alternator actually charges. So, on. We actually haven't even tried this thing with the throttle pedal yet. Ooh, this is cramped. Oh well. Ignition power on, check engine lights on. I don't know why that's on. Just ignore that for now. Something's not happy up here. Oh, that's my brake indicator light. It goes out when I step on the brakes. And now that, once there's some pressure on them. So obviously we got brake problems. All right. Or I got stuff wired backwards, who knows. So let's try fuel pump on. Alright, so now I'm officially deaf, but the alternator works, the throttle pedal works, the brakes definitely need to be bled better. I'll have to bring my vacuum bleeder. But, wow. Yep. It's running now. Reliably, which is something I've been working towards for a while and just couldn't understand why it was doing it. So, at least now, that part's done. Well, we did have a working tack when I was testing stuff, then I hardwired it and now the tack's not working again. But I don't care because I'm tired of cutting this ignition wire and messing with it. So we'll just leave this for now and we'll worry about the tack later. But from the driver's seat, easily visible. So we're good. Alternator charge is steady, so I'm happy there. And line lock clicks, but I gotta believe my brake's better to be able to test it properly. So now that I've got the engine, I've let it run for a few minutes here. I did add a little more water, and I'm not seeing our giant water leak, but it wasn't really taking any water, so well, there's a little leak in here. You can't really see it with the camera, but I promise you there's definitely a leak there. So I think I'm gonna lift it up, change the oil on it quick. I think I have oil. I gotta make sure I have oil, but if I've got oil, I'll quick do an oil change on it, because I put some seafoam in the oil. I also put some seafoam in fuel. And then we'll see. Geez, it's already 6 o'clock. I should go home soon. We'll lift it up. We'll change the oil if I've got oil. And we'll maybe look at pulling this panel back off and cutting a hole in it to put an inlet pipe through it. And then I think we'll put our air filter right in here. And then we may or may not put a NACA duct to feed it. We'll see how things go. I might have got a little ambitious and said, screw exhaust. Who needs mufflers? I mean, this is just temporary, so it's not blowing on the inside here. And here's the deal. If it gets to the point where we don't have time to put mufflers on, at least it has exhaust, and it's not filling the cab. So it's past 7 and I've had enough for today. I feel like I got some big things done that were really stressing me, like the engine runs consistently. The exhaust is already smelling cleaner. It doesn't stink so rich. I got that switch panel installed, which I'm happy with. I should have the shift cable and the hitch this week, well, within the next week, so I can get that done. I'm going to pick up an air filter. I'm going to try and get the air system done there. Hopefully Steven 3D prints me that stuff soon, because I really need that plug for the power steering, because I retaped it to slow the leak down and it's still just puking oil all over the place. But yeah, I'm excited. I think one of the next big things is to nut and bolt check. Like, I don't remember tightening those, and we didn't put that one in on either side, so I want to double check all that. I know I redid the cradle mount bolts, like tightened them all last weekend. So yeah, I got to remember to bring a few tools, and I owe Kyle 5 liters of oil. It wasn't even 5 liters, but I broke into his brand new pail. So maybe I'll just keep that pail of 1540 and get him another pail, because everything loves 1540. But yeah, I'm actually really excited with the work I got done today. Like I said, I'm hoping to come at least 2 nights for the next week here. And then for the foreseeable future, we'll see how things go. Because I'd love, by the end of the month, to be able to drive this around. And if everything's good that way, it's button crap up. So, thanks for watching, guys. I'll catch you next time.